Hello, everyone. This is Jerry. Today I'm going to share something that's a bit difficult emotionally. I'm talking about holidays, which I have a decades long love hate relationship with. And like many autistic people, I thrive on routine and have sensory challenges, but thanks in large part to my family being supportive of me and me seeing the family traditions themselves as a routine of sorts, my relationship to holidays during my childhood was actually much healthier than less painful than it is for me now. Though the deaths of various family members, as well as some others moving far away or becoming estranged, new work getting in the way, that this has been fundamentally altered. In many cases, to me, holidays often don't feel like holidays anymore. And so I thought I'd tell you about, you know, these personal thoughts, and these are my thoughts, and because every person's different, and same with autistic people, but yeah, sure. It was different from my day to day routine, which almost always had to be followed to a T to avoid meltdowns, but knowing what to expect when a change occurred, even a positive one, especially if it was positive, made it much more manageable. But there were more people around and thus more noise, but I always had a quiet, safe place to go when I did become overwhelmed. Now, my relationship to holidays started to change with the death of my grandmother, May 1st, 1998, less than a month after Easter, my last holiday with her still alive. Uh, Tragic irony, this death occurred exactly on my younger cousin's first birthday, making what should have been a joyous occasion a rather somber one. Now, to say this was difficult for me to handle was a bit of an understatement. Now, I understood why I felt sad, angry, cheated, but couldn't comprehend why I felt so numb much of the time and would sometimes feel guilt over these strange emotions my 12-year-old mind couldn't comprehend at the time. Her death was a shock to everyone. Nobody knew she was sick, because she hid it from everyone, and since she was only 64, if I remember correctly, her death was not from old age. My grandfather remarried, and there was a long standing disagreement over family traditions between my grandfather's new wife and my mother regarding these traditions. And she didn't mind adopting some of these new traditions, but didn't want to forget the old ones we had before my grandfather remarried, and I felt the same way. Now, I never had anything against her, as I appreciated the fact that she made my grandfather happy, though I felt sad that some of our old traditions felt like they were no longer being given the time of day. My grandfather passed sometime around my late teens to early 20s, in his early 70s now. My father died in 2012 due to complications from kidney failure, and both an aunt and a cousin died in 2019, the former from atherosclerosis, which was likely caused from years of smoking, and the latter was a flight instructor who died along with her student pilot in a plane crash. This aunt was one of the few links holding my mother's side of the family together, and this particular cousin, who was younger than me when she passed, immediately reminded me of my own mortality and that I should get the most out of my own life while I still have the chance. Most recently, last year, I had an uncle die from cancer, only to have his wife and two children, one of whom was the same cousin I mentioned who turned one on the day my grandmother died, disappear from the face of the earth almost immediately afterwards for reasons I can't even begin to comprehend. There wasn't even a funeral for my uncle, which is equally baffling to me. But you can't force people to interact with you that don't want to. Each death I mentioned profoundly affected holidays, as well as making me and other family members get emotional around those times of year. In my case, it's usually around Christmas that this grief is at its worst, and I often try and tell myself that it doesn't matter anymore, that I no longer care about holidays, but I know that's a bald faced lie that I tell myself, which only makes things more painful. Part of me would rather say bah humbug and pretend holidays don't exist. Another part of me, though, not only wants to hold on to what's left, but to bring back what's been lost and pass it on to future generations, much like the parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles did for my family. What's further compounded this pain has been the disruptive effect of working retail for such a long time. The good news is that my seniority has me off on certain holidays I didn't used to get, and my store is closed on Christmas Day. Yet often so exhausted by the time a holiday comes, thanks in large part to what I've only recently found out is autistic burnout, even if I happen to be off work on that day, that I'm a zombie the entire day. I was off on Thanksgiving Day, and though I was glad to see my brother visit from Oregon, I could barely keep my eyes open for most of the day. If it was just a regular day, I probably would have spent most of it in bed, to be completely honest with all of you watching. I'm grateful to always have Christmas off, but often had to work Christmas Eve, which meant that most years I couldn't observe the yearly tradition of spending Christmas Eve with my dad's side of the family at my Sicilian immigrant aunt's house. Thanks to being made opening dairy clerk, I was able to observe this tradition for the first time in years, the year before last, as well as last year, but much to my sadness and disappointment, that doesn't seem to be the case this year. Being able to still visit family, even if I have to work on a holiday, is one of the main reasons I worked so hard to become opening dairy clerk, and thus one of the main reasons why having that opportunity unjustly taken away from me is so devastating to me. I also liked the earlier shifts and the ability to more easily have a social life. Believe it or not, autistic people like to socialize. We like to socialize every now and then, and we just have to do things a bit differently due to sensory challenges, masking, and energy balance challenges. You know, despite this disappointing news, I have some good news, and if all goes well, this will not happen again next year because by then I'll have moved on from retail forever. I'm very close to getting a notary public commission, and once I'm able to secure a steady income from that, I'll be out of there and won't look back. Of course, I don't plan on being a notary forever, but it will help keep me sane and support myself as I pursue graduate school so I can achieve my actual career goal of being a history professor. Of course, there's one more reason Christmas in particular is difficult for me, and that's because it's less than a month away from my birthday. When I was a child, I looked forward to getting older because I saw it as me gaining more freedom and opportunities. Now I just wish time would slow down and that I would have more of it. As I've lived a life for years at that age, I was at that didn't quite envision in my head when I was younger. Simply put, because there were so many milestones I wanted to accomplish by this time yet fell so far behind on, in comparison to my peers, I feel as if I'm running out of time as I get older. This has resulted in me becoming profoundly insecure about my age as I approach my 38th birthday next month, and as I approach my 40th birthday in a few short years. While I know I'm not old enough to be considered old, I'm old enough to be considered middle aged, and as each year passes by, I feel I've less and less time to truly live up to my full potential. As I constantly need to remind myself, though, less time does not mean no time at all. While it's a cliche, there is truth to the glass half empty, glass half full saying. I could give in to despair and wait for death or worse, but I've decided against that destructive path. Though seeking professional help as well as self improvement, I'll find a way to work through these emotions and find a way to make holidays a happy occasion once more. Things may not be the same as when I was a child, but things weren't the same as when my parents were children either when I came into their lives. One of my mother's sisters committed suicide when she was a teenager, and one of my dad's brothers, who was an electrician, died on the job. I was named after this brother in his honor. Despite the pain of these losses and different holidays became without them, they both continued living their lives and still ending up creating new memories on holidays and other occasions. Change can bring pain and loss, but it can also bring opportunity and joy. If I were, for example, to meet the love of my life by next Christmas, that would be a change. And if by the one after we were to be married, that would also be a change. But in each case, it would of course be a welcome one. Accepting change has been and still is one of the greatest challenges because routine has been a source of psychological comfort for me in a world that often makes little sense to me due to my neurotype. I've profoundly improved over the years how I deal with change, but as I reflect on this, I realize that I still struggle to this day, but can and will improve further. I don't know what next Christmas will be like. Perhaps that hypothetical I gave may come to pass at that time. Perhaps it may not. But I may have some other good news or opportunity instead. It won't happen though if I give up and feel sorry for myself. So I'll do my best to count my blessings, deal with grief in a healthy manner, and once again, count my blessings, even though that is admittedly not always an easy thing to do.